Hi everyone. So I have titled this talk, The Ethical Design Beyond the Feel Good, because although ethical design is about making others feel good and making yourself feel good, that probably won't convince a boss or a board of directors. So for that to happen, we need to move beyond the feel good of ethical design. And ethical design is potentially a very strong competitive advantage, and it's certainly a sound approach to running a business. So if we look at the definition of ethical design, we can say that it's businesses, products and services that grow from a principle of fairness and fundamental respect towards everyone involved. So it's not just about visual design. It's also about people and processes and business. And it's about building ethical standards and practices into our daily lives. Now, I assume that everyone knows all the problems that come with lack of ethics, especially in the digital industry. One thing, the data broker industry is booming, and Oracle at this point in time has access to 5 billion unique customer IDs, which basically means that they've mapped out the majority of the world's population. And we're seeing case after case where people's safety are being compromised digitally. On the lesser severe end of the scale, we have companies who will use pretty much every manipulative trick in the book to make us buy stuff that we don't need or buy stuff at a point in time where we don't necessarily need it. And so much so that people with disabilities like multiple sclerosis and epilepsy have to stay away from these types of websites because it might cause them to seizure. But things are about to change, and they're starting to change. And that change is driven not just by people, but also by technology. So there are three factors in particular that are interesting to the business case of ethical design. The first is transparency. So modern consumers are increasingly being accustomed to transparency. We can compare prices to pretty much every product we buy online, and all the information that we need is also accessible to us. It's dramatically different from just 15 or 20 years ago when we had to rely on the store owner to give us this type of information. So customers can look up reviews online, the good ones, the bad ones, and we can't really hide them as businesses anymore. Another thing that people are starting to demand is transparency in pricing. So people really don't like hidden costs. And this is an example of hidden costs that are added to a purchase after you put it into to the shopping cart. And this actually makes the price go up 35%. No one's really quite sure what these additional fees are, except for maybe the state tax. And that's a problem. A Baymart study showed that 24% of users have abandoned an order within the past 3 months because they either couldn't see or calculate the total order cost. So consumers require this type of transparency, but not just in pricing, also in the way that businesses are run. Lynx Cars is actually a great example of a company that works actively with transparency in multiple ways, not just in pricing. So Link Valentine runs an incredibly successful car leasing business in the UK. And even though in design snobby Scandinavian views, you could say that her website is, shall we say, challenged by the vibrant colors and mix of patterns and animations and games and what have you. And Ling knows it, and she doesn't care. Because as she says, her website is about her customers, it's not really about cars. And the deal with Ling is that she's managed to build an incredibly strong brand. And it may come as a surprise to you, but ethical design is actually something that grows within the core of Ling's business. So I'd like to read out a paragraph from the privacy statement at Lynx Cars about transferring personal data outside of Lynx Cars. It states, "I would love to sell the data because I would make a fortune out of it, but I don't. I put it all on a compost heap called old data and I sit on it. Eventually worms eat it." So transparency goes beyond pricing. You can't run an ethical business if your pricing is transparent, but at the same time, you're violating people's privacy by selling their data without their knowledge.